Hello and welcome. My name is Larissa Russell, and I will be presenting the module on mental health awareness. The Schuylkill Intermediate Unit, in collaboration with school entities, community agencies, businesses, and government partnerships, serves the changing needs of education through delivery of services, improvement of current programs, and implementation of new initiatives. Let's get started with part one. What is mental health? We need to talk about mental health. Most people find it easy to talk about physical health, however, find it difficult or even uncomfortable to talk about mental health. Please take a moment to watch the video, We All Have Mental Health. This video was developed by the Anna Freud National Center for Children and Families out of London.
You can't tell how someone feels just by looking at them or what they share online. To the outside world, our lives may look perfect, even if in reality they aren't. I'm always worrying about doing well at school, and with the end of year test coming up, I'm not sure how much longer I can cope. My thoughts swarm around my head, sometimes keeping me up all night. Some days it's just all too much, and I feel like I'm lost in space. When I did badly on one of my tests, I just about kept it together until I got home. Then I broke down crying in front of my mum. She listened for a bit, and then she told me that, just like physical health, we all have mental health. It's our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. She then said that feeling down, angry, and stressed is a normal part of life, just like it's normal to feel happy, confident, and carefree sometimes. We all have positive and negative emotions that come and go based on what's happening around us. These are everyday feelings. Good mental health means experiencing negative emotions. It's not always about being happy. Mum can relate to the feelings of stress. So when Mum suggested I take a break from everything and do something I enjoy, I actually took her advice. So I made myself a hot chocolate, snuggled up in a duvet and watched a film. And you know what? Afterwards I felt so much better. Mum should take her own advice.
Most of us only ever share the good things. We don't like to share how we really feel. Every morning when I wake up, negative thoughts stream through my head. Getting out of bed and pretending I'm okay takes all the energy I have. As the day goes on, the negative thoughts turn from a stream into a river. The water rushes through my head so loudly it's hard to concentrate in lessons. And some days it's so bad it feels like a waterfall that's trying to pull me over the edge. Everything is so overwhelming. I didn't think my friends would understand if I told them how down I was feeling. But when Sasha opened up to me about how stressed she was feeling, I told her. I wasn't sure how to bring up how I'd been feeling, so I started by saying that I didn't feel like myself. Just her listening made me feel like she understood. She told me some things that had helped her, so I tried them too, but it didn't make much of a difference. Even when I tried to be around my friends, I felt alone. The things I used to enjoy weren't fun anymore.
I was really worried about Andre and not sure what to do. He was quiet and wasn't hanging out with us like he used to. So I asked our head of year for some advice. He suggested I get Andre to speak to him since his negative feelings weren't going away.
I didn't want to speak to our head of year, but I also didn't want to keep feeling so down, so I went. He said that sometimes we have overwhelming feelings that can be more intense than our everyday feelings. These feelings hang around for a long time and change the way we feel, think, and behave. They can stop us doing what we want to in life. That's what I was going through. He also said that if we're physically unwell, we let people know, we ask for help. It should be no different with mental health. Sometimes our overwhelming feelings are brought on because of things in our life. Sometimes they happen for no reason at all. After hearing this, I felt much less alone and it felt good to talk. Scientists have found exercise can help when you're feeling low, so our head of year encouraged me to sign up to the school football club, which Sasha was already in. I still have days when the river is there, but now I'm beginning to understand my mental health. I'm learning how to cope. Our head of year reminded me that my friends, family, teachers, and lots of others at school are there to help just as much as he is. I had no idea the people around me could be so understanding. And while it's not always easy to talk about my mental health, the person I'm talking to might be able to help. If you don't feel like talking, that's fine. You could try writing, sports, reading, art, music, playing with your pet, whatever makes you feel better.
If you're the person someone talks to when they're struggling, just listen with no pressure or judgment. You don't have to have the answer. If you feel unsure about anything, you can speak to a trusted adult. Talking about mental health doesn't have to be difficult. After all, it's something we all have.
I hope that the takeaway from the video is that we all have mental health and we should be able to talk about mental health like we do physical health. These could be the students you work with in your role. That is why it is so important for you to understand mental health. What is mental health? Mental health includes emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health intersects with all aspects of our life. It is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. It is important to learn about and understand mental health from an early age. It will help us to manage stress and cope throughout our lives. What can impact mental health? Biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, along with physical health and self-care. How we feel physically affects how we feel mentally and vice versa. Life experiences and the environment, both positive and negative, such as healthy activities and outlets or trauma and abuse. Another example could be growing up in a resourceful community versus growing up in poverty. Family history of mental health problems, including perceptions of mental illness, acceptance, and/or treatment. Some families may be embarrassed or deny mental health problems and refuse help. Other families may be more accepting and willing to engage in treatment. Did you know approximately 20% of children and adolescents has a mental health disorder? Various reports have indicated an increase during the pandemic. 1 in 10 youth experience a serious mental health disorder. 90% of people with a mental disorder show red flags or warning signs during adolescence or teen years. 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness begin by age 14, 75% begin by age 24. Research shows the earlier interventions begin, the more likely the youth will have a positive outcome. In many instances, these interventions begin in schools because of staff, like yourselves, notice a concern and seek help for the student. What you should know is normal adolescent development is a time of dramatic change. All areas of their life will be changing throughout adolescence: physical, mental, emotional, and social. Some examples of physical changes include their body changes, hormonal changes, becoming more sexually aware. Examples of mental changes could be increasing independence, individuality, abstract thinking, becoming more impulsive or risk-taking, defying authority, and etc. However, we do want to mention that the brain is still developing during adolescent years. Emotional examples could include moodiness, being more self-focused, oversensitive, or being quote-unquote dramatic at times. Some social examples include trying to fit in, romantic interests, pulling away from family to focus on friends, and an increased need for privacy. I'm sure you have noticed some of these changes in your students just over a summer break. We do want to go on to warning signs and red flags because it may look similar to normal adolescent development. However, we want to look at the frequency, duration, and impact on daily functioning. The frequency refers to how often, the duration refers to how long, and the impact on daily functioning refers to how it is interfering with daily life activities. So let's go over some examples in these areas. Some examples in the physical area would be an increased sleeping disturbance or eating patterns, glassy eyes, dilated pupils, lack of self-care, breathing disruptions, dizziness, or pounding heart. However, we do want to point out that these also might be signs of a physical problem and should be looked at no matter what. Some examples in the mental area would be becoming extremely argumentative, maybe feeling confused or incoherent, expressing delusions or hallucinations, racing thoughts, having difficulty concentrating, or thoughts of self-harm or suicide. Some examples of emotional red flags would be mood swings, depressed mood, increasing impulsivity, having no emotional response, or a loss of motivation. Some warning signs in the social area would be a sudden change or loss of friends, a breakup, increased isolation, use of drugs or alcohol, avoidance of previously pleasurable activities such as sports or extracurricular activities. We want to mention trauma, an exposure to an event, series of events, or a set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotional, harmful, or threatening. It has lasting adverse effects and creates significant difficulty in cognitive functioning and physical, social, emotional, mental, or spiritual well-being. The trauma may be different for each youth. What might be traumatic for one may not be traumatic for another in terms of fires, abuse, neglect, losing a home for some reason, change in the family dynamics. A variety of trauma situations could occur and should be looked into if a student is expressing any of these other warning signs or red flags. Whether you think it could be a warning sign or red flag or just normal development, it won't hurt to report your concerns. Remember, the sooner an intervention takes place, the more likely a positive outcome. Let's move on to suicide warning signs. I want to preface any concerns of suicide should be reported immediately. It is not your role to determine if it is real or not. Some examples of suicide warning signs include threatening to hurt oneself. This could be in person, on social media, or through a friend. A student may tell you or ask you not to tell, and a friend of a student might tell you and ask you not to tell. Either way, this is a non-negotiable situation and must be reported. If you find out a student is seeking access to weapons, medications, or other means to hurt themselves, expressing hopelessness or no reason to live, having extreme anger or seeking revenge for feeling that they were threatened or harmed against, extreme anxiety or agitation, feeling trapped, shamed, or embarrassed. And again, I'd like to point out social media because when things are posted, they might feel this way and that it will never go away. Facing uncertain consequences such as legal or disciplinary actions, whether it's through the community and the law, or at school with discipline, or in the home. Increased drug and alcohol use, having dramatic mood changes, and lastly, giving away prized possessions. Many youth do this because they want their things taken care of if they feel they will no longer be around. These are just some examples. There are many more, and I'm sure that you would be able to look more up on your own. This is the conclusion of part 1, What is mental health? Please take a moment to answer the questions pertaining to this part.